another Friday.
Friday.
You gotta get something better than the robot dance.
It's not really a robot dance. It's just me being me.
Oh, sorry. I thought it was a robot dance.
Robot. That's the robot dance. Come on, folks.
Sort of like
hey.
robot. How are you doing? Sorry.
I was doing good until I got called out for my dancing.
Sorry we're a little late. But we're here and we're excited to talk with you today about website redesign budgets.
Budget.
Before we dive
get the
into
Monopoly
all that,
money.
Oh man. Can make it rain. That's a better dance than the robot dance. Anyways.
I like my robot.
Anyways, so you've got to tell everyone out there, tell you listening out there, you've got to tell them about the new Facebook.
I don't want to tell it. I'm so excited. No one else has gotten this that our team has said. I know Michelle hasn't. I don't think Jacob
I'm
or
pretty
Jasmine
upset
has.
because I'm like the Facebook guru over here.
Michelle usually gets the beta stuff on mobile. I've seen that in the mobile app. She'll get different design updates and those kind of
and
things.
I do get it on the Facebook ad side.
Yes.
Which makes sense.
Yeah, which irritates me.
Well, tell them.
But there is a new interface that's supposed to use more real estate. It's wider. It's a lot more, I would say, bubbly style looking. And it also includes dark mode. For those on the Windows and Macs, you can enable dark mode. So and websites can be programmed to adapt to dark mode. So if you're used to having dark mode, which if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. It's really cool. But it just makes the windows dark, and it's cool, okay? It's like my robot dance. But it uses so much wider real estate on my screen, and I love it. It's really cool. It's very streamlined. It actually very closely mimics the mobile app now.
Well, right, and it has like a lot of basically they're just trying to keep you on the site a lot more, and it's very streamlined.
Yes.
And I don't know, did you check it on the mobile to see if it did some kind of transfer over to being having some of those features on the mobile too?
No, because I usually use the Facebook app itself. So I didn't go look to the mobile website to see, but I think the mobile website.
Well, I thought the app might have some of it too.
No, the app did not change. I did do that test, but it does look really cool.
So it's coming.
Since we don't have a producer, we're the producers of this show. I can't throw the image up. It would just be too clunky. Okay,
right.
folks.
So for now, just be on the lookout because apparently he's on the beta of that.
Yes.
And I think there probably will be something that sort of propagates out through all of the things. But I think because the website version, the browser version, was so old school that they finally brought that.
As everybody know, it can find you if your screen, especially if you use a desktop Mac. It was always this wide.
Right.
Now it's
right. And it's sort of appropriate to talk about that as newsworthy because website design.
They did a redesign.
Yeah, of their website, which is about time because that old, granted, I know that everybody, probably 90% of their users use the app over the website, which is probably why you got the beta because you actually do use the actual website some. So.
Yeah, I don't use the mobile that much.
Yeah, so you're in the beta because of that. But anyways, so be on the lookout if you do use it sometime on your desktop. I know probably a lot of marketers might because they're doing stuff for their company pages and stuff. But it's coming.
It is different.
It does have a lot of features to keep you more in Facebook platform, which is even more scary.
Yes, just be aware. If you don't like change, you're not going to like it. But then you'll love
get
it.
Used to it.
And then you won't like the next version. That's what I've learned.
Yeah.
So we are talking about website redesign.
Yeah.
Before we dive into that, anything you want to share? What's going on?
I don't think so. I think we finally are wrapping up projects. We got, we just finally got our leak. If you've been following us all along, we were on the back porch because we're still, if you can tell, we're still in our home office right now because of COVID. But we were when we were on the patio for the home office and it was more pleasant outside. When we were talking about all that, we had a leak in the house and we have a concrete slab and blah. and that was no fun because we haven't even been in this house very long. But anyways, so we finally got that all finished today. So yay!
Right. Well, cool.
So, and they're not ruining our lives by making a lot of noise because they're already done, and we're here.
That's right. All right. Are we ready? Are you ready? I get the interview Michelle today.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's dive in.
All right.
First up, why do we need to actually set a website redesign budget?
Well, so this is something that, a lot of times gets overlooked when people are trying to work on a website redesign. They sort of just go straight to, I have a solution, I know what I want, and I'm going to go get quotes, and that's how I'm going to set my budget. But I think what's really good for people to think about is to really try to align their expectations with what they're willing to spend before they go dive into actually getting quotes from people. Because sometimes it can be like all over the place and you're not even comparing apples to apples. So it's really good to think about it internally and say, okay, so what are we willing to spend? And then realize that when you're setting that, you also need to set expectations of, if I'm spending $5,000 on a website, but I'm thinking I want to work more with a freelancer, then $5,000 is going to go a lot longer way when it comes to your feature set. But if you're wanting to work with an agency, $5,000 might not go as far on what you receive at the end, but definitely you're going to end up with something polished, but it just might not be as in depth if you need more features and that kind of thing. So it really just helps you determine what to expect and align your expectations with sort of the amount of money you're wanting to spend versus who you're going to work with and what you're going to get. Because again, then if your price point's only like $1,000, then you need to realize, well, I probably can only work with a freelancer to get a good website out the door, or I need to work internally and maybe hire someone to bring them on to help with other tasks too, but then also to be more technically inclined to get the website up and running. So those are all things to think about, and that's why it's important and that you need to create it, and then you need to be willing to openly communicate that when you do talk with people that you're getting estimates from, because that would sort of be another step in the process. But having that to bring to the table helps it helps the people you're talking to get the estimates, whether or not you're in alignment with what they offer. And I mean, you don't have to play all your cards, and we talked about this last week some, so you can go check last week's live video on the channel that you're on, but basically you don't have to say this is my end all be all cost. You can give a range, and that at least lets them know, the person that you're talking to, it lets them know if you're in alignment with even what they're working with. So it keeps you from wasting time and effort too.
I mean, so it's not important.
Because everybody's busy. You're very busy as a marketing professional or as a business owner, and so you're really busy, and you don't want to just spend all this time talking to all these companies or freelancers, and then you're like, well, that was pointless because that's way out of line with what I was wanting to spend. So you need to sort of gauge your expectation levels and that sort of thing before you do it, because again, if it's a really low budget that you've got, well, then maybe I just need to table it and wait till later.
Right, and I think that's a hard decision for a lot of business owners and even the marketing team, of saying, maybe we can't do this now.
Right.
Because of we're doing all these other things. So you've got to, it's hard, but you've got to make that plan and effort to say, we are going to do it. What is that realistic budget? And it's very important, just like Michelle said.
Right.
So. And
you can always have wiggle room and be willing to go up or, whatever. But I think having a decent idea of what you're willing to spend is a good starting point before you start reaching out to agencies or freelancers.
Right. So as you know, you can't just say, oh, here's my budget, I don't really know what to expect, right? That leads us right into our next question is, what kind of questions should you be considering when you're trying to build that website redesign budget?
Well, so the list can go on and on, honestly. There's tons of things to consider, but I know first and foremost, one of the most important things is to consider the goals of your website. And I know that everybody that listens to any of my talks or any of the lives that we do, they're probably like, oh, because I always say goals first, and goals are boring. But it is very good because it lets you align your feature set, align your priorities, and align those expectations within your budget. Because again, just thinking about goals. So if your goal is just to have like a new face to match your branding better,
new paint,
to have, just to have like the new trends and that kind of thing, and that's literally all you want, then you very well can get, a really, like, say your budget is $3,000, $5,000, and you just want the paint redone, then you probably just need to, talk to some freelancers and then get,
or even work with your past company.
Right. And then you basically have that's all you need is for them to refinish it, make it pretty. You just need to go look at their portfolios and decide, like, these people did really good. Like, I love the way that this end product was. This is who I want to work with. Like, that can help you really decide from a budget standpoint, well, I like these companies' portfolios, so I need to, I want my budget to be in line with what their offerings are. And so, and then the same thing, if you're really like need to show up in search engine results, and that's a high priority, then you're going to have to tack on some extra budgeting to think about, oh, well, I need to work with someone that has experience with SEO and that is that can provide proof that they either helped the performance of the website or maintain the performance of the website. Because that is something that can be detrimental if you rely heavily on search engine optimization and then you go get a website redesign from someone that's not very versed in search engine optimization, because they could kill your traffic real quick. And that's not good at all. So you need to consider a little extra budget padding for that and ongoing budget planning for that.
Another good question to consider is what kind of features do you need to add to your website or maintain, because that's going to adjust the budget as well. So if you think about that from an e-commerce standpoint, if you didn't do e-commerce before, you're adding e-commerce, that's going to add some budget requirements as well. The same thing is if you're just putting paint on and you've got an e-commerce, that might require a little bit more wiggle room to skin those shopping pages, if you think about it from that standpoint. The other thing too is anytime you add features to your website, you're probably going to have to add some money to that budget to cover that, what we would say, build out of that feature. It's not a build every time. But another way too is if you do like a membership website, if you're having people log into your website and those kind of things to either buy or save and do some type of functionality on your website, that's going to add to your budget. And then, you want to showcase maybe case studies or portfolios, that might be something that will add to the budget. Again, you need to think of these kind of questions.
Yeah. Well, and then you also need to think about your internal and external capability, because, your internal capability versus what you want to, get someone to help you with. Because if you have in-house writers or you have in-house graphics people that can help with creating some of the imagery that needs to be created or fulfilling all the video requirements and stuff and that sort of thing for your website, then that can actually like reduce some of the cost. And then some agencies may have like certain stipulations where you have to do certain things with them versus not, because of like they're basing it off of the performance of what the end product's going to be, and they might have stipulations. So you sort of need to know, like, am I coming with content and imagery, or do I expect the agency or the freelancer to provide those things, or
are you going to work with a third party to do the imagery and those kind of things?
So all of those sort of play a part into things to consider for the budget, and then you can even you need to think about what your timeline is, because if you're like super super wanting it, tomorrow
or yesterday.
Yeah, then you got to think about like a rush fee, because there might be people that can work it through real quickly, but they might require a rush fee.
Right.
So that's going to add more cost. And then just thinking about long-term things to make sure that you include those in your first budget and then your ongoing annual budget. I mean, there's website hosting costs.
Don't be surprised. Items that come up, right?
So there's website hosting costs. And for people that don't know what that is, that's just basically where your website sits in the virtual space. And so there's website hosting costs, there's domain registration, security certificates, all of those sorts of things that are very needed in today's space, especially the security certificates. You need to talk and make sure you're getting all those things covered and that you realize those are going to be annual costs. And then as far as like I'd already mentioned, do you need search engine optimization? Does that need to be ongoing? Do you need ongoing, assistance with content? And then ongoing maintenance.
Right.
Maintenance is a big key thing right here because the other two are sort of marketing specific, so you might can push those off to a different budget item. But maintenance and security to make sure that your visitors are safe,
right,
and that your website's functioning properly on an ongoing basis, you need to have a budget for that.
Yeah, who's going to maintain the site after it's done?
Mm-hmm. And then even training, I forgot to mention that, but make sure if you need training internally that you're adding a budget line item for training as well.
So again, those are some great questions. You can search the internet too for other good questions to consider about building a website redesign budget. But again, those are just some ones that we typically ask, like, well, what kind of features do you want on your website?
Right.
What's your timeline? All these things add up to the budget.
Mm-hmm.
Most people don't think that factors in, but it does, again. So write down the questions, go through them with your team or yourself, depending on your company size, formulate that, and then say, okay, let's go back to that first question of what is our realistic budget? Ooh, maybe we're not going to be able to do some, maybe we will. So, next, and our last question here is, where should someone begin when trying to create that website redesign budget?
So this one always gets tricky, and I honestly think that this is a lot of times why people just go straight to getting estimates from people instead of like creating a budget beforehand, is because they're like, well, I don't even know where to start. So the biggest and best thing to do is to first just look at your historical data, because chances are you already have a website because we're talking about redesigning your website. And so if you have a website, then you're going to look at your redesign or what you paid to do it last time. But then when you look at that budget item, you need to also think back about how that process went last time. Because, a lot of times people might go with the lowest bidder because they just want to save money. Because a lot of times there's not a lot of importance put behind website design and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so there might not be, like you just wanted to go with the cheapest option. Well, how time consuming was it for you? Was it a big headache of a process? Did you have to be so much more involved than you wanted to?
How long did it take?
Right. All of those sorts of things are things that you need to think about. So you look at that historical number, think about things that might not have went well. And if they all went well, great. You probably want to reach back out to that same person. But, if they didn't go great and you went with the lowest bidder, then maybe you want to up, your budget allotment for the upcoming project. And then another really good thing to do is ask other marketing professionals or small business owners. Like, ask them who they used, what they paid. And especially for people that you like their sites and you like the way that they look, you like the way that they function, those would be good starting points to get you a better idea of the price points that make sense for what you're wanting. And then lastly, there's tons of articles that you can research online through Google. You can go research and type in questions about like what's a good budget for my website redesign or something like that.
Check out our blog.
Yeah, we have one for local people in the general area for some pricing information, so you can check that out on our blog. That's blog.imageinabox.com. And you can just search for redesign or something, budget or something like that, and see what pops up. But anyways, so researching agency blogs to see sort of some price ranges. And again, that's going to go back to that first question. It's going to help you set that realistic, expectation, because with our blog, and I know a lot of other agency blogs that have information about it, they're usually go into like the builder cost versus the freelancer. They're usually broken up in that kind of way, so you can sort of see what to expect versus that type of solution. So
okay, cool. So let's recap. So what we went through today when we're talking about website redesign budgets is why you actually need to have a website redesign budget. So the importance of that, basically you can set your realistic expectations, and it sort of gives you an idea of where you can go down that path. All right. We also talked about what kind of questions to consider when crafting that website budget. So things like, what's the ultimate goal of your website? What are new features? Is there a specific deadline that you want to hit because maybe you're hitting a marketing event? Those kind of things, and all those other questions there. And then lastly, we talked about where can you begin when you're crafting that budget. So again, think about what you've spent in the past, where you want to be, and then also how was the past experiences as well. So again, and also I'm sure as business people, you probably have a network. Ask them, reach out.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, definitely like LinkedIn or, groups within LinkedIn or anything like that. Those are really good avenues to get, a better idea without having to start reaching out to agencies. And I think the biggest takeaway is just to make sure you're comparing apples to apples, because I really feel like a lot of times that people don't realize that they might be comparing apples to oranges when they're looking at price points from different people, because again, those key things to consider that we talked about, like again, if you really want to show up for search engine results, then you've got to find somebody that is knowledgeable in that kind of environment and can produce results for that. Right. And then you've got to adjust your budget accordingly. And then the same thing with, if you want to drive leads on your website, then you need to find someone to work with that's good at that, because there's so many varieties when it comes to website design. So that's why the goals are so important, right, to really make sure that you align with the right solution and the right person or agency for what your goals are.
Cool. Awesome. I hope you enjoyed today's talk. We love sharing this information with you. If there's any topics that you want to hear from around website and digital marketing, just comment, reach out to us. And we're here to educate you from what we do every day.
All right. Thanks so much. Have a good day. Have a good weekend.
Yeah. Happy Friday.